Good evening and welcome to our session, Luxury Market, Selling to the Luxury Market. It's a great privilege to be here tonight among all of you and with the fine brochette of entrepreneurs next to me, as well as the nice flower in the middle, Manal. I will start first of all by introducing the panelist next to me, and I'll start with Manal. Manal Khater has been in the advertising and communication industry for the past 12 years, working between Beirut, Dubai, Paris, and New York. She is the head of an agency called Atelier. She is the head of strategy there. Atelier is the luxury brand for working with Burnett. And as you know today, most of the agencies are really developing into a specialist communications for a luxury in the world. We have so many examples in the world, and we have the privilege to have Manal today with us. She has an MBA in luxury brand management from ESSEC in Paris, where she also worked with PPR Group. She will be making a small presentation to us, talking about the international trends, the global trends, and how she sees this interesting and very exciting luxury segment, and how to deal with it in terms of marketing, in terms of sales, and in terms of communications as well. Ziad Annan, next to me, he's the official Rolex agent in Lebanon. He grew up in Geneva until his return in Lebanon in 2003 to open the first shop in Lebanon. He studied management at HR at Webster University in Geneva, and then started his career at Bucherer, the Rolex retailer in Geneva. And then he went to LA to study gemology, and then back to Lebanon, as I have mentioned before, to open up this fantastic retail business that is Rolex today. The name of the business is Chronora, and they have as well Tudor watches that they are marketing and selling in Lebanon. Elie Saab, a junior, the son of Elie Saab, who is now, I think, a brand icon for Lebanon in the fashion world across the universe, is now a universal brand. From every part of the world, the work is acknowledged. But Elie today is responsible for the brand from a marketing and from a business development angle. He studied in Geneva as well. So how did you meet before? So he studied in Geneva, where he defined, implemented, and managed the digital projects expansion of the house of Elie Saab. Soon after, he moved to Paris to lead marketing and business development, where he orchestrated the release of new products and projects from the creation to their launch. Currently is a brand director, an active member of the board, and works very closely with all departments in order to ensure alignment with the vision and the strategy of the company. Mr. Assaad Raphael at the far end of the table. As you know, he is the owner and shareholder of Porsche Center in Lebanon. He is an AUB business mechanical engineer, graduated in 1989, master's in business administration from AUB as well, and he worked before at JR Executive Aircraft Services as vice president. Of course, today he is more known for the success of the Porsche brand in Lebanon. So our challenges is, how do they deal with their challenges? How do they continue to generate success? And I have chosen this, what makes consumers continue to buy luxury products? A very interesting question, and I hope by the end of the session, everybody would have answered and you have found enough insights on how these fine gentlemen found their way in a turbulent and difficult market. Of course, their challenges are different. They will be dealing with it on a variety of platforms. One of them is probably a consumer behavior. So do we have status anxiety? Do people buy to show, buy to escape, or buy to fit? Is there any drive to invest in what we call classics? Is it important to promote classics? And how do we do it? And I think we have various examples from not only the watchmakers, but also from car makers that we will be tackling in a while. And lastly is from an economic term, you know, demand and supply dictate the price, dictate how we go and purchase a product. Is a luxury, has a very inelastic demand, hence this is what sets it apart from any other brand in the market. I hope that with these basic three questions, I'll be launching the debate that we will soon reveal. But in the meantime, allow me to ask Manal to start her mood setter presentation about luxury products, how they work, how they operate, what makes us a tilt for them, how do we behave in front of them, and how do consumers at the end of the day make their success. Thank you, Manal.
Hi, everyone. We're sorry for the delay. We know it's a bit late, but we hope this is really worth your time. So first, we're going to start with a little presentation about the trends and the behaviors globally of luxury brands and how they're maybe affecting the behavior in the market. You won't find a lot of Lebanese examples in what we're showing here, but hopefully we can brainstorm together on how we can apply these trends and get some help from our panel on what we can do locally to grow the luxury economy. Every presenter's nightmare. Okay. So what we're going to start with is a macro view. So what's happening globally that's affecting luxury behavior? So what's happening on a global level in terms of needs changing, in terms of lifestyles of people, of demographics, of the power scheme? So the first thing we're going to talk about is changing needs of people. So before we used to talk about luxury as a consumption, as what people buy, as more cars you get, more watches you buy, more shoes, more handbags. But now we talk about the shift from owning to being. So a shift from, in a sense, where you're looking for experiences more than products, because there are only so many cars you can put in your garage, or so many watches you can put on your wrist, so many handbags that fit in your closet. You want something a bit more. You want something that you can live, something that you can experience, something that you can talk about, something that you can Instagram. So more of an experience that lasts beyond the purchase of an item. And I don't know who of you know Noma, the restaurant in Copenhagen, who everybody queues up for. You have to wait 7 months to get a reservation. And this is what people are after. Even if they're going to go there and have luxury ants, they still want to go to Noma. They still want to experience it because this is the true luxury now. It's more about experiences. The other thing is the lifestyles that have changed. So we've become much more casual. That's why you think it's fine for somebody to show up in a meeting wearing a pair of sneakers, but they could be Lanvin sneakers costing $600. So they're not your average shoe that you expect, but our lifestyles have become much more casual. So if we have $1,000, my mother used to go buy a diamond or some gold coins with it. I would go buy a handbag because it's something that you would use every day. It's something that you consume more often. So now we say that kale is a girl's best friend, no longer just, diamonds, because that's the thing you consume, and it's, a bit more expensive than your average lettuce. Burgers have become cool again. Everything has become so casual, yet we've turned them to be very glamorous. The other major shift is a change in demographics. So in Europe, you start consuming luxury at the age of 30. It's when you've established it yourself. It's when you've gotten your degrees, started working, got into a senior position. But in the region, you start the consumption of luxury at the age of 18. So this is when you see the young boys driving their first Porsche, maybe, or buying their first Rolex, or buying a dress from Elie Saab. Not the boys, the girls, of course, but this is when you start consuming luxury in the region, because you can say that, maybe we're spoiled, but maybe we just have a taste for luxury that's a bit more mature than other regions. Then you have the change in power schemes. So before, the brand used to be in control. So the brand owned everything. I don't know who of you knows that the creative director of Hermès used to be Jean-Paul Gaultier for the longest time. Not a lot of people know because they never wanted the designer to be at the forefront. They wanted the brand to be in power. And then the designers took over. So when Tom Ford left Gucci, everybody worried about the future of Gucci because the designer was so in power that he huh? You want to? Yeah. And then Vogue became in power. So if Anna Wintour did not like your collection, you wouldn't be in Vogue and you wouldn't make it. And then you, the consumer, became in power, and we were on the cover of Time magazine in 2009, and this is how it continued. So we did research to understand what type of stories you want to tell as consumers, why you buy luxury, and what type of image you want to portray every time you consume luxury. So the outcome is 3 behavioral trends that luxury have taken. There are actually 5, but for the purpose of time, I'm just going to talk to you about 3, and then we can have a separate conversation about the other 2. So the first one is experiences, how the experiences have exploded and how brands embraced experiences. Then we're going to talk about digital and social. Then we're going to talk about retail. So experiences, why have they become the new possessions? Why are we craving more travel? Why are we craving more, different types of food, things that we can buy, that we can live, and not just experience at the cash till, and it ends right there. So there's a study, the American Express spending survey in the UAE, I don't know if it's the same here, they say that travel is a new Rolex for UAE residents. So they're paying much more money on dining, on travel, than on luxury products because they want to consume things that, outlast a certain product. And if we look at the timeline of luxury, we notice that we're in a pretty nice place right now. So in the past, the definition of luxury was what 99% of the people cannot afford. So it was very much ostentatious. It was very much about the Bentley and the Rolls Royce. So the big cars that nobody can really buy, this was luxury. And then we moved into the boom, where it was more about status and extravagance. It was the Chanel bag walking 200 meters in front of you because you wanted to show everybody that you own that bag. So it's very much about showing off a bit. And the future of luxury is actually brilliant because it's all about knowledge, creativity, and individuality. So it's impressing the people who are in the know. So you don't care for everybody to know that you have money. So buying luxury is not only about emblems of wealth, but it's showing them that you know something that they don't. It's buying Oliver People's sunglasses that don't really have a logo, but people who know that brand would know that they're Oliver People's. So it's buying something because you understand the heritage of the brand. It's understanding what the process it went through to make it, and not just showing off a logo. So how are brands doing it? We've coined 2 terms. So we have experiential adjacencies and cultural top-up. So when we talk about experiential adjacencies, we talk about finding a passion that's very close to the heart of your brand. So something that your brand is very passionate about, and then trying to build an experience that's close to it. And I want to show you an example we've done for one of our clients, Mercedes, where we thought that Mercedes is very much about design, but that idea is being overshadowed by other brands that have taken over that aesthetic. So we did something called the concept store. We've teamed up with 16 of the prominent designers in the country, and we worked with them, we briefed them to create a product, maybe a bite, food, music, sound, something that relates to the car, and we created something called the Mercedes-Benz concept store. So this is just one example how when you create an experience around your brand, not just a random event and invite the press and have some champagne, but when you create something that's that the brand is passionate about, so here the topic of design, you can create a lot of sales results even in turbulent times. More global examples around experiential adjacencies is something like the Fondazione Prada that just opened in Milano, because Prada said that she's not only about fashion, she's more intertwined in the culture of Italy and into art, so she created a foundation. Fondation Cartier was there before, but they said again, we're not just about jewelry and watches, we're about contemporary art. Vuitton said we're not just about fashion and leather, we're about the art of creativity, and they opened their own foundation. And you know who's going to come up next. Ayache did the Fondation, or the Ayache Foundation, same thing. So took something that, you'd think they're just a retailer of fashion, but then they can go into an adjacency, something that they really like, so modern art, and they create a buzz around it. In the car world, BMW teamed up with Tate in London because they wanted to show their technological power, so they created rooms and experiences around the technology at the Tate Modern. Same thing for Hermès with the Saatchi Gallery in London, so they created something around Wonderland, they called it, which is based on their new campaign. So that's about experiential adjacencies. The next thing we're going to talk about is cultural pop-up, again under the theme of experiences. And the first brand we cite an example that managed to tap onto a cultural hook and contribute to the culture of Lebanon is Elie Saab, when they teamed up with LAU, and maybe we're going to talk more about it now, and they created the Elie Saab School of Fashion with the University of the Arts London. And again, you'd say that they're just a designer, but again, they can contribute a lot to what's happening in the country by tapping onto education and the new generation. More brands that have done that, Tod's, because they're an emblem of Italy, so when they knew that the Colosseum was being renovated in Rome, they took it upon themselves to put in $2 million for the renovation of the Colosseum. So again, they're all ideas of what we can do here, of how we can contribute to society and to the country beyond just advertising, beyond the press ad that we know. The second thing we're going to talk about is digital and social, so how brands are embracing that. And before we used to talk about whether luxury brands should go on digital and whether they should embrace it and how they should remain more closed off, but it's no longer the conversation. Now we're moving into talking about the marriage of content and commerce, and this is what luxury brands should do. So the three trends we're going to talk about are, the first one is social introverts. So when luxury brands wanted to go online, they didn't want to open up a lot. So that's why we call them introverts, but even when they're being social. So what they did is they told their story. And that's why you see every luxury brand online telling their journey. So the journey of Vuitton, the Odyssey of Cartier. So they tell you almost like a monologue, but it's still on social media, something that you can share, something that you can explore. Another way of manifesting yourself online is through bricks and clicks. And here we cite an example like Hermès, where they wanted to be online, but not fully online. So they did their site where you can experience the brand without being able to buy everything, because they wanted to use it as a hook for you to go to the store where you can show your full brand equity and help you experience the brand fully. So you can go in, play around on the site, buy maybe a couple of scarves, a couple of bracelets, but not be able to enjoy the full collection of Hermès. That's when you need to go to the store and where they hook you in. The last thing we talk about is the content coup. So everything we talk about now is content, because that's our social currency. That's what we want to talk about. We want to post, we want to regram, we want to share, we want to talk about things. We want to tell a story behind every brand we consume. So we want brands to provide us with content. And I'm going to give you the example of Nowness. I don't know who of you know this website. It's a beautiful platform. They call it the daily resource for the culturally curious. And it's actually owned by LVMH, but nobody knows that. They just slip in their products very subtly as a form of product placement, but everybody thinks they're just consuming generic content, but it's actually all brand-based. And here's a little tip on how to work with content if you ever need to. It moves from curating content to creating content. So things that you tag, which is like a passive integration or just a logo placement, like the Louis Vuitton cup. So the America's Cup is already happening. They just renamed it the Louis Vuitton cup, and they put their logo everywhere. Another way is to tweak it. So you take something that's already there and you spread it onto different platforms, or you work with it to change it a bit more. And the last example is when you tailor content. And this is the best part, where you actually commission stuff and you create so much content out of it. And a beautiful example comes from Rolex, which is the Mentors and the Protégés program, where they team up artists to create new pieces of work that they can exploit. The last thing is about retail and how it has upped its game, because we spoke so much about experiences and how the consumers are demanding something much more than the bonjour, tfaddal, the regular customer service that we talk about. They're looking more for experiences. We talk about two things here. One is the cultural infusion, and the second are the switched-on models. So in terms of cultural infusion, it's actually making your store, whatever it is, a cultural hub or a hotspot in the country. So when you travel to London, you want to go to Dover Street Market, you want to go to Liberty, you want to go to Selfridges because they're emblems of London. When you go to Paris, you want to go to Lafayette, you want to go to Le Bon Marché, you want to go to these places because they've become like the Eiffel Tower in Paris. So how can we make our stores in Lebanon a place to be whenever somebody comes from abroad, whether Arab or foreign, or the Lebanese living abroad? How can it be a cultural hotspot? And then in terms of the new models being switched on when we talk about digital, we now, this is a bit transparent here, but we talk about something called the omni-channel. So it's merging the online and the offline world and bringing them together into your store. Best example is Burberry on Regent Street in London, how they took all their online existent and fused it into the store, whether through live streaming or the apps or trying on clothes digitally. Another example is Tourneau, which is a watch store where when you look at certain watches, they give you like a digital tray that contains all your watches. They email it to you afterwards with all the details about every watch that you looked at. And this was a summary of what I said very, very quickly. I just realized because I'm out of breath. So there are 3 things to know about luxury behavior in 2015. So how experiences have exploded, and whenever we do something or whenever we want to buy something, we'd like an experience to come with it and not just going home with a product. The other thing is digital and social, so the selective evolution, how we're moving forward digitally with luxury brands, but we're still, unsure how far we should take it. And then the last thing is retail and how that has renovated itself and has become switched on. So what we do and what all brands should do is try to understand consumers a bit more. So consumer research, luxury profiler, knowing what stories every consumer wants to tell when they buy. They should design brand narratives. So what's the brand story and how can we experience it better? And create social and digital strategies in order to take your point of view online. So that's it. Now we're going to do the talking together.
Thank you, Manal. Very exciting, very interesting. I have a question for you, and I think it would be on the minds of a lot of people. Is today, where are you? Is today less is more in a luxury? I'm going to take the example. A few years ago, Polo came to us with this huge logo and huge emblem, etc. And now we are into minimalistic, almost no emblem at all on fashion. Is now less is more the in thing in fashion, in at least a luxury? Or
I think there was a time when the recession hit that less is more was better because people didn't want to appear as if people were being laid off, everyone was broke, people were in trouble. They didn't want to appear as if they were splurging, so they went for things, ostentatious, exactly. So they went for things that are a bit more undercover. But I think it's, it depends on the brand. So they tell you in China, Vuitton is not doing very well now, and Gucci, because their emblems are so in your face, whereas a brand like Bottega Veneta does very well because their only logo is the Intrecciato. So it's more about the making of the product. It's intrinsic to that. Yeah. But I think nobody should wear the big Ralph Lauren logo.
Yeah, not anymore. So if you have these big logos on your shirts, go and burn these shirts and get something. Okay. Elie Saab, I'd like to start the conversation with you. First, can you tell us a little bit, of course, your business is different from the business of the gentleman here. You have irradiation out of Lebanon. I remember you told us during one of the meetings that Elie Saab, your dad, likes to think of Lebanon as his place of creation, of Beirut, where he would like to sit and create and then radiate to the world. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And then about your customers. How do you profile them and how do you look at them as a start?
Of course. First of all, I want to thank Manal for this great presentation. It was pretty accurate if we talk about the global luxury trends. It's very much accurate to what's happening today, and this is what every company today in luxury is experiencing and is questioning themselves about experience, digital, and retail. Today, as Elie Saab, we are very proud to be a Lebanese brand, and we believe that this is a very big added value to our culture, or the experience that we'd like to set overall, and we really embrace that a lot. Mr. Saab, my father, designs from here. He had his first inspirations from here, and this is where the whole business started. So we really want to embed this culture into the brand and how to expand it and how to use this as a great advantage for us, because this is what makes us unique as Elie Saab, is that we're Lebanese and thank you. And we really would like to bring the best out of Lebanon and really show the best of Lebanon into the global world. So I'll give you an example which is very specific to retail and experience. When we decided to renovate our concept, our retail concept, which was first implemented in Dejor 5, our store, we looked through a few agencies architecturally that could translate the Elie Saab culture into retail. And we found this company, which is today one of the greatest companies in retail design, and they designed like 300 stores for Hermes. So the first thing we told them, we're like, we want you to come to Lebanon to understand the culture of Lebanon and to understand the image that we would like to portray to the world about Beirut. So come here, understand the architecture, understand the way we live, the way we receive people into our homes, the way we use different materials, and our strong expertise in architecture as a whole. So they came, they understood, and they really were impressed about the way we live, the way we build, the way we think about certain spaces, and the way we renovate certain areas. So they came in, and then they came up with this concept, which is great. And this is one of the examples that we would like to go on about in terms of our global expansion, is how to create an experience for the client, which is more than the usual traditional luxury that you can find everywhere. Today, the customer expect a lot from a luxury brand, expect a certain uniqueness, a certain positioning that they would never, ever think to find anywhere else. Because as Manal said, before the crisis, all the companies were a bit overwhelmed by the profits that they were doing from selling handbags, selling almost unpersonalized luxury. After the crisis, there was a break where everyone came back to subtle luxury. But then, now you see a trend where all the brands are positioning themselves and coming back to their original roots of the 80s, the late 90s, how they started. So for example, Gucci's started in leather goods, in horse riding kind of positioning, and a strong expertise in leather and everything, and now they're bringing this back into their positioning and what they want to represent. So I'm going to leave someone else to talk, okay, and we can come back to...
Okay, thank you. Ziad. Ziad, you're the Rolex man. You just opened a new shop in June a while ago, and you've opened another one, I mean a bigger one in downtown Beirut. You're engaging into activities. I mean, how much is your trust in this market, and how much of that is based on real business sense? Can you get us into the depth of your thinking?
The challenge for us was a bit on the opposite scale of what Elie and his dad are trying to accomplish, in the sense that we are trying to take a global brand and give a local dimension to it, which is extremely difficult with a brand like Rolex, because they are traditionalists, they are very rigid, they believe that the less you talk, the more you do. It's that kind of mentality. So it was a challenge to really have a dialogue with them in terms of how one can take such a global brand and make it local, give it a local dimension, whilst respecting, the cornerstone of the commercial business, which is that you have to be accountable to the identity of the brand. You have to be true to the values and the DNA of the brand, but at the same time, you have to be accountable and transparent with the customer as much as you possibly can. So it's taken us a while to reach a point where we were able to create a new platform with them. Firstly, with the move from the first shop to the second shop, we were able to convince them to give also, such as what Elie and his dad did, with giving a Lebanese identity to the shop itself. We also, nobody came, but we sent them a lot of material about Lebanese architecture, about the Lebanese heritage. That was extremely important for us because we're so much in love with that as well, having lived abroad for so long. So we were able to accomplish that through the external showcases, through the design inside the shop. And to give it even more of a local touch, we convinced them to create a Rolex Salon, which is a world first for such a small market. perhaps because it is such a small market for them, they were taking it as a kind of a test tube experiment to see how such a salon with the targeted use of that salon would give added value to the brand itself, to the image of the brand. So that's what we've been trying to do. We gave workshops. We've given to also focusing a lot about the ladies. That's one, the gender aspect is something very important to us. We've been doing workshops, and we did an exhibition 2 weeks ago for the launch of the new day-date. Sorry, شوية advertising مرة. So the new day-date, 40 millimeter, blah, blah, new caliber, beautiful watch. A lot of people thought that we were a bit crazy to do that. But we are not complacent. We believe that in spite of this overwhelming kind of sometimes trend, this in society, we're all like, طب شو فينا نعمل ما بإيدنا. For us, this goes against the current, of our thinking, which is that something can be done. One can always find the way to really bring the brand to the forefront through introspection, through seeing exactly what we can do on the inside, using all the material that's given to us by the brand, which with Rolex is very challenging. So the opening in June about a year and 2-3 months ago was also something that was a bit baffling. It was confusing for a lot of people. إنه ليش جوني؟ ليش مش الأوتوستراد؟ ليش مش دبي? The reasoning behind that is that once again we wanted to have that Lebanese heritage as a part of what we were trying to do, how we wanted to communicate to the brand. And also we had a long-term vision that, Jouni has a lot of potential. The old street also is very interesting touristically for the long run. So we have a long-term vision, which is also in Lebanon not always very easy, because we're all so focalized on shul turnover, especially me as a commercial, and what's the turnover this month, what are the achievements, what are the targets. So you always have to try to keep that, a certain long-term vision, which is challenging. Did I answer the question?
Yes.
Yeah?
Thank you. Assaad, if I have to keep a pace with you, you are as fast as the cars you're selling. So I remember less than 10 years ago, Porsche was selling something like 70 cars a year. You are over 300 or around 300 consistently.
20 cars a year.
20 cars.
In 2001.
Exactly. So this is an outstanding performance.
Thank you.
Now, how much of that is desire? How much of that is marketing? How much of that is hard work?
I have an approach to my whatever I will say right now, and I hope this is of interest to anyone. I mean, we are as actually representatives of brands, of luxury brands. We have our business plans, we have our objectives and commitments to our stakeholders and commitments to our principals, whomever they are, being Rolex, being Elie Saab, and being Porsche. The thing is that by the end of the day, you put objectives and you spend too much effort to write down a business plan. And in economies like ours, sometimes it's difficult to stick to your business plan and it's difficult to reach your targets, so you have to correct them along the way all the time. And you use all the marketing expertise that you know and that you can get hold of to try and achieve whatever you're trying to achieve. Lebanon is obviously not a very easy country to do business in because of its specificities. And you definitely, when you have an operation like I was saying again, like Rolex, or like the attendees here, like Rolex or Elie Saab, you have high expenses. And there's a break-even point. I mean, there's a number of products or sales revenues that you have to achieve. On top of this, if you perform better, you are able to be profitable and make money. Luxury products, by the end of the day, when it comes to selling luxury products, if there is no environment that allows you to sell those products, like let's say Dubai, where the purchasing power is quite high amongst consumers, in Lebanon, the challenge is to give you try to give added value. and how to promote and how to get to the client and to explain to him that there's an added value or an embedded value within the product itself. As a matter of fact, luxury brands, you cannot discount the products. You cannot go on offering on advertisement that please come by and get 5, 6, 10% off a car or a watch if you want to sell it. But you can always find ways to add value. In our business, in the automotive business, adding value is adding privileges like years of service, years of warranty, financial products, all kinds of things that give more value, and the client knows about these values without altering or hammering the brand equity or the brand's name. And this is what we're trying to do, actually, for the past 3 years, where business has been a little bit slow. Talking about the lifestyle and talking about the luxury experience, I was so much interested by what Manal was saying. Porsche is about lifestyle also, and we try to promote this throughout selling our products. It's not only selling the products, it's living the experience. And Porsche throughout the world offers travel programs, they offer trainings, sports driving school, they have a huge museum whereby you can see the lineage and the heritage of the brand. They have a very nice restaurant that you can go to in Stuttgart. So it's about living the brand. What we're doing here is trying to get the client as close as possible to the brand and make his whole experience with the brand exciting. From the purchase of the car in the showroom to the workshop, because this is a very important tool also. You cannot mess out in the workshop, because if you lose a client in the workshop, you'll never buy a car again. So it's a total experience, and you want this client, you want to retain the client, because we know that retaining clients is much cheaper than acquiring a new one. In terms of marketing, because also we're talking about marketing, we know very well that all the brands have marketing directions worldwide. They have strict guidelines, and you are supposed to apply those guidelines in the markets. What happens, and the trick is, the challenge is to always use those guidelines to the best of the consumer and try to adapt as locally as possible those guidelines. Meaning that you should, by the end of the day, since you live in the country, you know the taste, you know the requirements, you know the needs of your clients, and you try to adapt them and to offer something that is acceptable to your local environment. And we have done quite some events lately. We're trying to get people as close as possible to our brand, as close as possible to our heritage, as close as possible to our lifestyle. We have also Porsche design shops all over Beirut. We have Porsche design driver selection, fashion items in our showrooms. And we try to promote every year travel clubs. And we go to Germany to test drive cars on tracks, and we go to Finland to test drive cars on ice and snow. We try to get our Lebanese client as excited as possible about our brand. This is what we're trying to achieve.
Excellent. Thank you. Elie, if I may ask a question that might be of deep interest. How does Elie Saab create? Does it come from a need, or from what he thinks there is a need, or from what he wants the consumer to need? How does he do it?
I would say it's a combination of the three things that you have stated now. Today, of course, we are a designer brand, but we are at the same time very global. So a typical designer brand, which is based around a certain designer, would say, okay, today I feel like doing only pants. That's very good when you're niche and when you're small. But when you are in retail, when you have that much people counting on you and that much targets to achieve at the end of the day, you need to structure your offer like any other global brand. So you need to be able to offer every season consistently a pants, a skirt, a jacket, you know it. So the challenge here is to be able to find the new jacket, the new pants, the new dress. And this all revolves around a DNA which has been worked on for the past 30 years by Elie Saab himself, to be able to achieve and work with external people. Like, for example, today, not everything revolves around Elie Saab himself in the company. It's a global company. We are around 500 to 600 employees. And you need to be able to brief new talent, external people that are coming to work for us, like designers, marketing people, wherever, about the values of the company. So today, for sure, we like to introduce new trends and new ideas, but the offer is very organized and very monitored based on the market needs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you. Ziad, if I may ask a question about design, how much the past, how much the heritage accounts at Rolex, and how do you use it now to make people continue to desire either the products or the brand itself?
Well, this is a particularity, if you will, about the brand itself, is that they have, from their inception, 1905, they've really tried to be very faithful to this DNA that they have, and having steered clear of this sort of a schizophrenia that you sometimes see with certain brands, which switch directions, switch styles, change the way that they communicate their products. Rolex has done the opposite. They have been very regular, very stiff, if you will, but not because that's their nature, rather than because it is a strategic approach that allows them to keep the customer comfortable, if you will, to a certain degree, that the model throughout the years is always recognizable. When you see, once again, we'll use the example of Day Date, and we saw that in the exhibition from 1956 all the way till today. You're going to see some minor differences between the original and the current one, but ultimately the main difference is the technical aspect, which has been extremely radical. As much as what one might see with a Porsche, it's pretty much on an equal level, because they haven't really communicated that well the intensity of their commitment, if you will, to the improvement of the qualitative aspect of the brand. That's not always a factor that's very well known. So it is pretty much consistency. I would have to use the word consistency that allowed them to be successful throughout the decades. They know what they want, they stick to it, and nothing gets in their way. So that's it.
Assaad, just a question about a key component of people buying your cars is your famous after-sales. How do you attack that into the sales pitch of this, expensive item such as a Porsche car?
You have to be up to expectations. You enter a showroom, a Porsche showroom or whatever, a luxury brand, and your expectations are quite high. And you buy a car with a smile on your face. Sometimes you pay a check of hundreds of thousands of dollars for a car and you have a smile up to your ears. But if anything happens to this car and you get a breakdown, I assure you, you go to the workshop, first thing in your mind, you're going to hit the first guy you're going to see. Because you think that this car is unbreakable, this is a luxury brand, this never fails, this has no glitches, no nothing. The big challenge is to accept or to deal with the client when he's angry. And the best thing to do is to have good and trained personnel to take care of the angry or demanding customers, whether in sales and after sales. But it's very important to have excellent personnel in after sales. And then the service has to be matching. I mean, you have to have the parts, you have to have the know-how, you have to have the clean space. He has to see that he's been not only taken care of, his car is being taken care of. It's been well maintained, even well preserved, well stored. It is a huge challenge, and we follow a lot of trainings, and our personnel is constantly under training to match the demanding after-sales requirement. And we know that this is a must-do. We believe in it. Our philosophy, our mission statement is to get the customer throughout the experience at the level of his expectations, at least. I mean,
I believe, Elie, you don't have this problem after sales.
No, of course we do. Of course
you
we
do?
do. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
can you
definitely.
Tell us about it. Yeah.
Our service is all about really following a woman's best moments in her life. So from her wedding to
So it's a sales lead.
It's a sales lead. We know the culture that we would
From
like
her
to
wedding
implement.
to her daughter's wedding.
No, in terms of sales, the culture that is in all our shops globally is really to follow the woman in her life every day. So today there is a wedding. We know what she was wearing. We know if someone else is wearing the same dress at the wedding, we would tell her before that. If she needs to retouch her dress, we're at her disposal. So it's a very VIP kind of, it's a very exclusive kind of relationship that we build with our client. And definitely it has after sale. We're not in the idea of selling and dress and then that's it. No, we want to be there and always be there. Yeah.
Thank you. Would you like to talk about that as well? A Rolex watch that never fails?
Everything breaks down, especially a high-intensity machine, whether it's a Porsche or a Rolex, everything requires maintenance, and ultimately the objective for such two brands is to keep the product in the family, to pass it on from one generation to the next, and that is something that is very much feasible with these two brands. But there is a cycle to customer service, and it is very important to understand that cycle, to see how everything connects, how the experience of the customer coming into the shop from one visit to the next, regardless of the purpose, whether it's to purchase something or to maintain something or to bring in a relative or whatnot, it's important to keep that at the heart of our responsibility towards the customer. You know, as Assaad said, we can never disappoint, but obviously there are going to be disappointments because there are such high expectations. When you own a Porsche or a Rolex, you do have these high expectations, and sometimes it's all about knowledge. I mean, the customer must understand the limitations and of the machine. So it's part of our job to educate the customer. I'm not very comfortable using that word. It's a bit arrogant perhaps, but it also is about imparting knowledge, which is part of the entire experience. You're coming in to buy a Rolex. The challenge is to familiarize the customer with the product itself. As Assaad was saying, you have to travel. You can travel. You can experience the car differently on the racetrack and whatnot. For us, also doing workshops sur place is very important. The customer must come and see how the heart beats, basically, within the watch itself, and how complicated it is. And you know, then the customer will have a greater appreciation once he has greater understanding of the product. So this is one of our biggest challenges here in Lebanon, is just to show it as it is, basically. I don't know how to say it.
Yeah, I think this makes it even
I would
more
also add,
desirable.
it's educating the client about accepting that when he's getting a complicated machine or watch or whatever, this has, I mean, engineers have poured a lot of R&D, a lot of efforts in designing this piece, and there's nothing that doesn't fail. By the end of the day, this is a machine, and there is, to cover these failures, there's, in the automotive business, and I'm sure at Rolex too, and I'm sure at Elie Saab too, there's something we call warranty. So this product is under warranty for such a period of time, because we know that there are glitches, there are some things that need to be corrected along the way, and the educated client does accept this. Some people just don't accept this, just expect this product to never fail, you know. This is a perfect product. I'm buying a Rolex, I'm buying a Porsche car, I can just do whatever I want with it, and this machine is not a failing machine.
But this is the responsibility of such a big brands as your brands, because they provide so much pleasure, they provide so much excitement, they provide so much pride and ownership, but at the same time you have to be responsible for them as an owner and as a retailer, as a reseller. One last question before we leave the audience to start, if they have any questions. What are your immediate plans for the future in Lebanon?
I have a lot of plans. We're still investing. We still believe in the future of Lebanon. We're not, pessimistic. We're still optimistic. And I think this is the way to do business in Lebanon. When I go to any conference with my colleagues and peers in other countries, and they ask me, how do you plan? And my answer is straightforward. I say, I plan as if I was doing business in Switzerland. And everything that's happened, that might happen along the way, we just correct and we just adjust. But you can't sit back and say, the situation is bad and I will do nothing. You just have to keep on going to invest. And then, as I said before, whenever we do crisis management, and we manage whenever there's something that's happening. From our part, my part, I can tell you today, I'm still investing. I'm looking for a piece of land. I'm expanding my workshop facilities space. I have opened a showroom 2 years ago in Dubai, full-fledged, full CI guideline showroom. I have increased the and I think this is the way to go if you want to do business in Lebanon.
We're also investing a lot in education. As Manal mentioned, our collaboration with LEU, the idea that we have for this university or for this school is to be a creative hub in the Middle East as a whole for creativity. It's to be able to focus and to educate young talent in Lebanon to focus their creativity to the international kind of standard in order for them to be able to compete internationally. We really hope that the situation in Lebanon will be better, and we have no doubt actually that it will.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Assaad?
What to say? There's always an ongoing effort to invest internally. This is a priority for us. So we do everything in house as much as we possibly can in terms of how we talk about the brand, the CRM, which is a huge deal for us. This is the only way to really understand the customer, is just to have a customer relationship management system. This is a necessity, especially when you get to a point where you've had a number of years behind you, you have a number of customers. You have to be able to make sure that the customer coming into the shop is recognized. This is ultimately the purpose. So every customer coming in is greeted by his name. This is a huge challenge. So the personnel need to be on top of their game. They need to be very highly trained. The salesperson is not just a salesperson. He really is an ambassador. This is a word that's abused too much in the industry. But investing in employees is something that's fundamental to the growth of the business and goes hand in hand with how the brand is perceived. So we have a lot of work. We have another brand that also is made by Rolex, Tudor, which is coming out of the shadow, if you will, of Rolex. It's been happening for a couple of years, and this is also a big challenge. It's differently positioned differently. It's the same quality and all that. So intellectually, we have a lot of challenges. We have a lot of things ahead of us, and that, as far as the points of sales are concerned, which are extremely important. This is something, the first fundamental tool, which is used to really present the brand in a spectacular way, if possible, if that's what the brand necessitates. So we're always on the lookout for new points of sales, and even if it's something that's very long term, Trablus, for example, why not? This is a huge market that has a lot of potential. Why not study the market from now? Even if we're talking about 5 years down the line, you have to invest in CRM, you have to invest in scenario developments and all that. And this is not easy. It's a huge challenge. So that's it.
I also think it's, I would like to thank Ziad for making all this happen, really. Also, I think having such gatherings is also very important to spread the positivity and the country, It's just to exchange ideas, to sit down, to exchange challenges and day-to-day problems that we might face from external environment, and to sit down and really spread this positivity around, because some people are in a situation where they can't see the positive anymore, unfortunately, in this country. And having sit-downs like that will help to spread the optimism in the country, and I trust you guys will do that.
Yeah, they will. Yeah, I'm sure with all these projects that are today in existence and what you are planning for the future, you're creating new jobs, you're creating new opportunities, you're opening up the market for a variety of specialized staff, specialized people who will, with your school, with your new showrooms and new after sales and yourself with all these new things that you're planning to do. You're helping in the job creation and in a market or in a sector, first of all, which is not evident when you look at the situation, but apparently you have been defying the odds, and you've been making out of that a huge success, and we see that through your hard effort, through your professionalism, through your perspiration, and not relying entirely on the attractiveness of your luxury brands. So they are not enough by themselves. You have to do a lot so that you continue fueling them, you continue having people coming to your showrooms or to your places of work, putting up the checks and then spending a big with you guys. Now, if there are any people who would like to ask any questions, can we have the mic, please?
Thank you. It works? Yeah. Yeah, hello. I have 2 questions. First of all, thank you for very valuable presentations and discussions. My first question is, based on your observation, and this question is for everyone, how does the purchasing behavior, how the consumer behavior of the luxury consumer change during crisis? Do they buy less? Do they buy more? Because of anxiety, maybe? Do they buy differently? Based on your observations, and we've been through this a lot in Lebanon, since 2006, 2005 until today, how is the behavior changing of the luxury consumer specifically during crisis? My second question is, as luxury sellers, where should the biggest investment be in your entire value chain? Should you invest in in-store decoration, customer service, after sales, promotions? And I don't think the investments should be the same all mabarif. Maybe they should be, but the entire value chain, which should receive the biggest chunk of your investments. And when I say investments, not just money. Money, time, effort, stress, patience.
I'm going to answer the second question before the first one. I have answers to both questions of yours. First, the most valuable investment is human capital in luxury for me. The relation between the salesman, as Ziad said, and the customer is very important. And the way the customer is treated when he comes to our showrooms or to our after-sales facilities or our tailor-made whatever studios, the most important thing is the behavior of the salespeople, the knowledge of the salespeople, the treatment the customer gets, and by the end of the day, the end service that he's able to get. The thing is, in Lebanon, it's become a bit hard to find qualified people because of the situation, because of the will to immigrate to other countries, surrounding countries maybe, where business is flourishing and so on. I so much respect education, just like Elie Saab is doing with LAU, but we're always on the biggest challenge is to find and to identify talent. And to retain this talent is very important. To educate them and to train them to our standards is also a big part of the effort that we do. Coming back to the second question, to the first question of yours, the customer behavior in Lebanon has become very moody because of the situation. It is imperative that the customer has to be in good mood to buy a luxury product. Unfortunately, this good mood is not available every day. And that is why we do added values, we do advertisement in which we promote and we offer packages which are not through discounts because we're luxury products, but there are benefits that we allow ourselves to give in times of crisis that we would not give in flourishing times. It is no secret that these benefits, by the end of the day, are reducing our margins. But you need to move, as we say in the automotive, by the end of the day, you need to move metal. Because this, when you have huge inventories, it's weighing a lot. And today, Lebanon, we all know that the market, because of high offer and low demand, it's a buyer's market. Even in real estate, you hear that transaction price is much lower than claim price, because the buyer that has money can put the condition. And if you're a seller, and if you don't find a buyer, unless buyers put his conditions on you, you hear that there are transactions that are much lower. It so much applies to our business. Sometimes clients come into the show and, I want to buy a car. How much is it? That much? I'm willing to pay that much. How can you deal with that? I mean, I personally told a friend of mine once, this is not a piece of land with negotiating, I didn't inherit it from my father. This is a machine that I have bought and that I'm applying a limited margin on, and I'm selling it. But this is not a negotiable, it's not a product I can negotiate on. It's a buyer's market, it's a difficult market, and luxury has to adapt. And I think all of us here are trying to do this without harming and demolishing what we've been building as brand equity and brand positioning on the Lebanese market for the past 12 or 13 years in operation.
Hello, Mohammed Dar, real estate developer. I have a personal question for Mr. Assaad in terms of his experience and the many things that he has personally passed through. When you just spoke of, for example, in terms of real estate transactions, like the terminal value that people are paying for is much less, but at the same time, in a competitive market, you have to provide more incentives, higher specifications, better payment facilities. You have a lot of challenges, and at the end of the day, you have a very, very, very limited market. How do you reach your sales figures? Do you actually achieve in Lebanon? And
excuse me, do you actually what?
Do you actually achieve the sales figures that you perceive in Lebanon?
Achieve? I'm sorry. Yeah.
Thank you.
We are, until today, we're achieving, I can't say 100% of our objectives, but we're achieving almost 90% of our objective. Since the market is shrinking, we know that there is a limited number of potential clients. Our challenge, again, I talk a lot of about challenges in Lebanon because this is our daily bread and butter. It's challenge, challenge, challenge. Our challenge is to retain those customers and to serve them in the best way and to retain the price of their assets. So if they buy a car, they know by the end of the day that their car is being well treated. The day that they will come back to your showroom and trade it in for another car, they know that you will give them the fair value. And this is one of the ways to retain the customers. In a shrinking market, there is no inflow of customers. There's no traffic. I mean, I was in Dubai last week. I walked in Mall of the Emirates. I mean, the traffic is, I mean, this is what they're trying to sell you. They don't sell you a square meter to display your products in. They sell you traffic. You open the doors and people just come in. Here, you have to be proactive. You have to go to the client. Clients are not coming to us today. I mean, there are a few clients, but it's not that I can tell you that the showrooms are empty the whole day and salespeople are busy. We have an operation, we have people sitting, you have to get them busy. If people don't come to you, you reach to them. And reaching to them is through CRM, events, letters, emails, and you cannot afford today to lose a customer. I mean, every day I walk through the showrooms and I ask the salespeople, how was your day? What customer did you treat? What was the outcome? Do you need me to call him tomorrow? You know, did he mention that he knows me? You can't afford to lose a customer. You have to reach to the customer and you have to get him to get a deal done. But still, by preserving the brand, by preserving the service that we're offering. You can't just say, I mean, just like we said, you can't just offer. Yeah, there's a fine line between serving the customer and doing whatever he's requesting you to do. So you have to reach a point to agree on the deal.
Ziad has an answer as well on this one.
You do have a finite number of customers, but it sounds a bit cannibalistic, a bit silly, but you do have to take the customer of the competitor. This is, in a sense, it doesn't annul the argument that the market is shrinking, because it is, obviously. I mean, less expats, no Arabs. You know, it's challenging, it's tough, the local situation as well. So you have to take the customer of the competitor. It's a bit savage, but it's healthy. Competition is healthy. This is what we believe.
One more question.
Yeah.
Another.
Actually, it's a question and a kind of applauding what you are doing and what you said. It's very enlightening to see people as you intervening, and you are part of this, what this country is about, resilience, optimism. And all your talks has emphasized about this, and probably it's very much linked to the topic, growth and success no matter what. As much as I can understand how Elie Saab, because who Ibn al-Balad, still believes in Lebanon and will always remain as part of this country, and no matter what, he's going to continue doing what he's doing. How, such as the Rolex and the Porsche of this world, how can you justify abroad, for instance, when the numbers do not match and do not speak and you do not meet the numbers? You are Lebanese, and all what you've said is linked to this commitment and to finding ways, added values, being innovative in terms of trying to have both ends meet. But then again, when the numbers, and sometimes they will not match, how would you convince Mr. Rolex and Mr. Porsche?
I don't think this is a question that is only related to the Lebanese situation. You know, globally today, there are problems everywhere in the world. And these principals, manufacturers, owners, whatever, they are facing problems everywhere. China has declined the past 3 years, we know very well. Europe was in trouble a few years back. The whole region is in trouble. And due to globalization, the news is spread around, and people, we do communicate. This is not a, how to put it, this is not a one-sided relation. When you represent a brand like Porsche, I speak for myself, and I'm sure Rolex, they are partners. And when they implement on you guidelines on how to represent their brand, they know who you are, they know how you deal, and they have KPIs. Of course they have KPIs, but by the end of the day, they know what the situation is. They come visit us, we go visit them, and then we adjust the shootings, as we say. I mean, we were always adjusting, and it's not rosy. Even today in the Arab world, in the Gulf states, because of the drop of prices of oil, because of the crisis of Yemen, they're not reaching their numbers. It's not that in Saudi Arabia it's the best year. But again, every country has its specificities, and every market has to be dealt with in a different way. And I'm confident that Rolex has a perfect partner in Lebanon, because and I'm confident myself that I can always, in all modesty, I can always get my people to believe in what I say, because they should at least be confident that I'm telling them the right story. I'm not telling them I'm not reaching the numbers because I don't know what. The story is here, the facts are here, and they know that we strive to reach the numbers. It's not that we're sitting backwards and watching numbers go by.
Hello, my name is Charvel. My question is for Manal. Manal, one question. How is heritage related to a brand, to a luxurious brand? How much can we separate heritage and time on this planet from luxury? And what does it take for a new brand, not the ones being born today and dead tomorrow, to become luxurious? And the question number two, on a social platform, how much will arrogance carry a luxurious brand? To how far? Thanks.
Let me start with the first question. It's going to be the topic of my next presentation. It's the aspect of timeless versus timely. And I think luxury brands always play between these two dimensions. And what Porsche just had in downtown, classic meets new, it's that idea of luxury where you always play on your timeless aspects or your heritage. So you go back to the archives, to the roots, to what made you in the beginning, and then you need everything that's modern because you need to be in the now and to appeal to now. So that play between timeless and timely is very important for luxury brands, and that's why, as Elie was saying, when Gucci was in a bit of trouble and there was a bit of crisis, they went back to their equestrian heritage because this is what made them different, and this is what brings the idea of long-term value to brands versus immediate pleasures. And I think in luxury you need to always swing between satisfaction that's in the now, this pleasure that you need to quench right now, and something that's of long-term value. So if I quote Patek Philippe, so it's something that you hand off to the next generation, that's something that's going to last forever, versus a brand that ties up with modern artists doing something that is now to appeal to your instincts and desires. And for your next question, I think arrogance is a very bad term, and I don't link it to luxury at all. You need a lot of substance in order to be a luxury brand, and arrogance is not a value that any of them have. So it's just a tone of voice, I think, that you need to adapt. So whatever brand you are, you need to decide what character you want, what tone of voice you need to have, and you need to take that onto digital, but never be arrogant. So I hope I answered that.
You have a capital. I don't want how much, but how is the rotation for 1 year? Or rotation de stock? One question. Second question, what is more difficult if you are not Rolex or Porsche or Elie Saab, to launch a new product or to stay on the same level that Porsche, Rolex and Elie Saab? Thank you.
Usually in our operation, you always hold, supposedly, you're supposed to hold 2 to 2.5 months of stock. So the ideal stock turn is 5 to 6 times. Unfortunately, when you miss your sales targets, you pile up on stocks, And if I can tell you frankly today that our stock turnover is 4 times, it's not 6. But it's still manageable. It is still manageable. The second question was, can you just... Actually, we come with a brand that has heritage. Again, the previous question was linked to heritage. It is much difficult to launch a new brand than to maintain the lineup and the lineage and the heritage of a brand that has history. Today, people look for stories. People don't look to associate to anything but a story. Rolex has been probably 120 years in the making. Porsche has been since 1940s in the making. And these brands have stories behind. They write books. You have pictures, movies, people behind the brand. It's very important to know who are the people behind the brand. You know, Elie Saab is Elie Saab because there is a designer that's called Elie Saab that's behind the brand. And in luxury today, just like the presentation of Manal, which I respect and that really put a lot of emphasis on the experience. The experience doesn't come with a new brand. Experience comes with history. And I think this is very important for luxury brands.
I have 3 questions. The first one, do fake brands affect brand image positively or negatively?
Fake brands.
Yeah. Do fake brands affect brand image positively or negatively?
Okay.
The second question is, what are the marketing strategies that can combat these copied products? And the third question is, do these products affect consumer behavior or brand experience in a certain matter? I'm not talking about apostles or loyalists to the brand. I'm talking about new clients who want to try this brand. Because now we know that everyone is wearing a Rolex and everyone is going social about getting these Rolex. So how can we separate these 2 experiences?
It's more difficult to counterfeit, a Porsche than a Rolex, so I think...
I think this question is addressed to Ziad, solely Ziad.
It's a complex and very good question. We would like to have a more humane way of looking at things, a less corporate one, if you will. Obviously, not all markets are alike. Not all of us can rely on our governments to keep a market clean, to keep a brand protected. A customer aspiring to own a luxury brand who might wish to relieve his frustrations, if you will, by buying a counterfeit is something that is understandable. I can understand that. I can not appreciate it, obviously, because it's not always good for the image of the brand. But ultimately, when a customer comes in and asks us about this question, we always tell them, well, you know what you're wearing. So what do you care if the guy next to you is wearing a fake watch? So our objective, once again, is education. So we explain to the customer why it is that he shouldn't buy a fake watch, what it means when he's actually purchasing one, not just as because he is posing a threat to the brand, which they don't, not really. But they have to understand what it is that they're buying at the same time. So there is a personal outlook on what one wants to invest in. So this is my perspective. It's more of a humane one, and as far as the challenges of restricting the fake trade, the counterfeit trade, this is something that we trust the system. We have to trust the system as far as Rolex is concerned, and as far as the legal parameters that exist globally to counter that existence of such products.
If I may add to, I'm sorry, I had to correct my saying. We do also have an issue with with fake brands, fake parts. Oh. The question was addressed to Ziad, but I also have a concern. A lot of our parts are available on the market as fake parts, I mean manufactured in China and so on. And they compete with us because the client is not educated towards using the original parts, which is the best way or the best part to maintain and to give the best performance of his car. So you find around in secondary workshops a lot of parts like brake pads, like I don't know, whatever, branded in Porsche boxes, just like the original one, but they're like 20% of the price. And this is also an educational process to the client that using these parts is harmful to the car, and these parts won't last, and they're not subject to warranty for a year or two, and just to deter them from using and harming their cars by using those parts.
Any more questions? Okay, if we're done, thank you very much. I'll leave you with this thought. The day will come when I'll be putting a Rolex in my hand, driving the white Porsche Panamera, and take a wedding dress from Elie Saab and drive a Manal to her wedding. Thank you very much.